Hello everyone. We've tried skills. We succeeded with spells only. So now I want to attempt the attack team. I'm going to refrain from calling this an attacks only challenge as I have a lot of caveats I want to go over. First, I'll be using the heroes level up cards, which are in fact enchantments and not attacks, just like I did for the skills only challenge. Second, unlike the skills challenge, I'm allowing myself to use the heroes starting cards, which are usually skills. Third, I'm also allowing myself to use food cards created by items then put into my hand. Why? Because we are desperately low on draw, and this is one of the few ways to give characters extra draw per turn. Other than that, I will only be playing and taking attack cards for the entire run. We have 4 main obstacles in this run. 1. We can't block easily and have limited access to healing, so most damage is there to stay. 2. Our consistency in playing and using cards is awful. We can't fix hands or power up one hero's turn to be glorious, forcing every hero to try and carry as much as they can, and still subjecting us to awful RNG. 3. It's difficult and expensive to get the statuses on enemies or auras on ourselves. We mainly have to rely on on-hit weapons or other effects, and speed control is nearly impossible to rely on. 4. We need Straw Hat on the final bosses, which means our route is predetermined, and we might just get stuck with some super unfortunate fights that we'd otherwise be able to work around. As for the cards that we're working with, I wasn't joking when I said we're not going to be able to power up heroes' turns. There is one attack that gives Energize. It costs 2 and is pretty bad relative to other attacks outside the early game. There's no Inspire and 0 ways to energize other heroes with our cards, so we'll be relying entirely on items for those effects, which are few and far between. That's one of the reasons that we're getting Straw Hat. For some of my early attempts, I thought up a really fun route to get both Tempest and Straw Hat as long as you pass the check to get over the bridges at the end, which you can manipulate through what card rewards you take in the fights preceding it, as long as you have some expensive cards in the deck already. The problem is that getting to the Straw Hat is really challenging in and of itself. Most fights were painfully hard to get through, requiring 1 to 3 attempts to get to the point that we were stable enough to get to the next fight without losing. Laia was our saving grace in allowing us to heal with Sanctify, but the Hydra would still take us out turn 2 unless we had full health and no vulnerability on our squishier heroes that had maxed out resistances, which means we needed to not have any death stores. As I was losing hope on that run, I decided to switch things up to something that seemed far easier with the rule set I had made for myself. Let me tell you all about why Heiner is the best attack tank in the game as I go through this pre-recorded run. Before we get into our run proper, I figured it's a good idea to go over what perks we'll be using. They will also be in the description below, but you can look at it here if you want a more detailed explanation. So Heiner is going to be having a lot of resistance perks as well as much health as I could stuff on him. We are going mainly for gold as we're going to need a lot of divinations to make sure that we have more playable cards in our decks. The shards here just don't buy enough attacks, and we can get some really good attacks from divinations. We are also going for max block as well as the Fortify perk increases blunt and fire damage and maximum crack charges. Other than that, we have the Inspire perk. Navalea is going to have Inspire maximum charges on this hero. Give 2 card draw instead of just 1. It doesn't really come up ever, but I thought it might, and I don't know, it's kind of useful with Bree and her starting card. Anyways, moving on to Bree, we have max resistances as well. Again, because I'm really planning on getting some very hardcore armors in the late game, since speed won't be as much of an issue. And we just need to survive the hits. We're also going as much gold as I could put on. We're really perk limited on this run, so I had to really strain myself to figure out like what sort of composition was right for our perk points, and this is what I landed on. Bree is going to be the fastest character, especially with her starting items, and she'll have the +1 fast charges to make her even faster and hopefully speed up the team in the late game. She can't speed up the team in the late game. Haha, just kidding. Yeah, no. Like I said, speed manipulation, not really a thing, but I am hoping that she'll be fast enough to slow down some critical enemies when the time comes. Other than that, We have Navalea. Navalea is super clutch on this run. Again, max resistances, as much gold as I could put on. The speed needed to be slightly slower because I actually wanted her to go after Laia sometimes, but before Laia other times, so 16 is Laia's maximum speed. That's what I landed on. We're going for the blunt damage carry, and yeah, same with the Fortify, gives blunt damage. We are also going with chill on enemies, reduces blunt resistances, as we need as much blunt reduction as possible. In retrospect, I really should have gone with the vulnerable on enemies, reduces slashing, piercing, and blunt resistances by 8%, but doesn't reduce any other resistances. The reason I didn't was because I wanted to go with Laia. Laia, again, max resistances, max speed, all the energy and gold I could put on. And yeah, we're going to be going with that holy damage because Laia has a card that transforms all her damage into holy, and we are going with max sanctify charges as we don't really care as much if she's doing the most damage with holy, which these other two perks are useful for. We really just want that heal for herself and all the heroes who are going afterwards. We also have burn on her, increases speed by 1 per 8 charges, and instead reduces fire resistances by 0.3% per charge. That's really going to help us out in the very late game when we're having tons of burn on us and we need her to go fast to apply Sanctify before everybody else goes, since they might die to statuses. That should be all of the relevant perks to go over. I don't think I missed anything, so now we can get into the run proper. Getting into the run now. You can see that we are in town. We have 2,400 gold, 1,200 shards. We got some good items in War Banner and Gauntlets. Not a lot of money because we needed a lot of resistances. I will now show you all my decks, how I made them. We fit attacks basically in everybody's decks with divinations. Not the best divinations, mind you, just kind of okay. We upgraded some dark blows so we could hit any monster. We made punches so that they could hit any monster because hitting the front is very bad. And yeah, added as many pommel strikes as we could so that we could get more crack on enemies. Even Laia had some pommel strikes so that she could have crack. We got War Banner and Gauntlets on Navalea because she has extra power perks. And yeah, then we're going to start the run and go towards Straw Hat. So, get into it real fast. I figure after the perks section, this should be fine speed, I hope. Yeah, this one was fun. I legitimately had a lot of fun with this. I was definitely suffering a bit on the prior run where I was going for the Tempest build with Sylvie and trying to kill as fast as possible before we took too much. Laia's healing was good, but it just wasn't enough. And realizing that I could use Steelforge in this rule set to gain a lot of block was extremely helpful. And like, not having to forego any block means that we can survive so many more turns that we wouldn't be able to otherwise, and sometimes we just can tank it completely. First little bit goes pretty well. Heiner's also just a better, I mean, he's the best tank resistance-wise, and letting Bree focus on damage solely is going to be really nice. She's actually a really good carry, but her carry potential does suffer a lot by not having a lot of card draw, since she has a on-hit enchantment that anytime you hit enemy, you deal extra blunt damage and extra crack to them, but it only lasts for a single turn. So without as many cards to play, and without as much energy, she really can only do so many hits per turn, and it makes her wombo combo turn a lot less effective, especially because we can't even like edit what card she's going to be using for that turn. We do have a lot of fast strikes in there. Mainly I put those in there so I'd have a way to attack, maybe get rid of some evades, but honestly I don't think they were super worth it. More pommel strikes, another headbutt, pretty good for us on Heiner for the headbutt. Headbutt can be used to slow front monsters a little bit later. It's a 1-cost slow, which is the cheapest slow that we're going to find. Shield Charge at least gives us a 2-cost slow for the front monster, but we can't target anything. Purple Headbutt is really what I'm looking for. It does a slow by 3 and can target any monster. Its damage is not going to be terrible, but it's also not really what I'm using it for. But yeah, we're getting up a fair amount of block. Bree's starting cards is the one card that has Energize, and it's not terrible. At least in the very early game, like I mentioned before. It is just okay. I've been debating Shield Bashes a lot because Shield Bash is a way to gain block and block is kind of relevant. Leap Slam is too expensive to be good, I think. We have to really make sure that we're using our energy wisely. Nothing I could afford there. That was good. So we just skip straight past that. We pick up another punch on Heiner, go straight into a heavy strike, and grab a nice pair of slippers from the Otis event. There's also the health potion, which I kind of want to grab because health potion tends to keep us alive on all attack runs. So Laia's going to take that, and we're going to hopefully be okay. We're not too damaged on this run, and thankfully, like, that it's likely to stay that way because Heiner keeps starting us with a lot of block and we have a good amount of resistances. Laia's starting hero spell is also very useful, though I feel like I drew it on a lot of bad turns on this run. You'll see what I mean as we go through it. It just kept showing up at like either the very start when I wasn't damaged, or it was the very last card when I did start a fight damaged, and it would sometimes not save heroes that I needed it to save or allow me to heal them up. Yeah. Unfortunately, we're very subject to bad RNG like that because we can't fix our deck in any way, and we're not going through it particularly fast. It also means that we want to keep a very thin deck with the correct energy amounts-ish. So we're going to have a lot of zero-cost cards and a good amount of expensive cards, but probably more expensive cards than zero-cost cards because the only zero-cost cards we can play are Punch and Fast Strike, which is why we're taking pretty much every punch we can find on every single hero. It is the one attack that costs 0 that can attack any monster, and it's just very, very good. Also, it's, of course, scales with the type of damage that we're trying to do, since Crack allows us to do more blunt damage for every charge that we have on an enemy. That's the other nice thing about this run compared to the other team, is our scaling is kind of going to happen automatically, especially because going the Straw Hat route, we're going to pick up a good weapon for this team in general, and also Bree and Navalea are going to be able to apply a lot of crack to enemies moving on, which will even make it so that Heiner can do a good chunk of damage. The one bombo here is Navalea and Laia don't synergize very well together. Look at that random attack. there were a few random attacks this fight that hit Navalea that was just really rough, and so there was no saving her. I reattempted that fight a few times to try, but no luck. Here we get our level up, so we have all our good cards now. Unfortunately, we draw the Unforgiving Nature first turn. It does a good amount of damage, but the important part is we get Yoga up to 22 crack, so every blunt damage will do 22 more to him. But that is going to be after resistances, I think, so it's not going to be that much more damage, actually. Yeah, I'm like, I have energy, right? I kept having like some weird energy issue with someone. I forget why I was looking at that for so long. Blood Rain is an attack, by the way, for those wondering. The reason I'm taking it is because there's so much fire in the early game, and there's also fire in the Volcano Land, which I do plan to go later. So it's one of the few ways that we can actually get rid of that if we keep it global and put wet on all of us. Also, Laia's going to be putting fire on herself with her enchantment, which turns all of her damage into... oh, look at that maim. Sorry, gotta go back really quick. That's a purple maim. It targets any enemy and slows them by 4. That's probably the best slow we're gonna get. 3 cost to do that, though, is just really expensive. We do get a purple leather gloves here as well. So now we can give some more powerful charges to our hero of our choosing, which would be Bree, because Bree and Navalea are main carries right now. The helmet is really good for us on Heiner because it gives him a little bit of extra block, and outside of the 1 shield charge I think we got, we don't have any other ways to give him block, and if he doesn't have any block, Steelforge won't proc because you have to fully block damage, so we won't be able to block for the entire team. Pretty rough going, actually. And we also want Steelforge to proc even more because it will power up the damage of all our blunt damage types for both Navalea and Bree. Of course, I didn't take that on Laia because Laia is transforming all her damage into Holy, and we want to keep it that way. Having an extra damage type is really nice. Having the Sanctify is just so clutch for a run where we can't really heal well. Honestly, without Laia, this run would be like 10 times harder. Heiner too. Heiner, honestly, he could probably carry the other run a little bit as well if I did want to go with Andrin and Sylvia again. They weren't bad choices, and I think I just wasn't supporting them well enough with Magnus and Bree. But yeah, given the fact that we can use enchantments, Steelforge is amazing, but you can see we only have 23 block to start with. It does end up being just enough. That was part of the helmet, honestly, that kept our block high enough to work out. We also get the Palisades from Champy, so that block keeps stacking up. We get like 15 or something like that from it. Very, very good. Ylmer's still a really tough one. I did lose this fight once, so I had to reattempt it. And it still went pretty long. The death store that we picked up on Navalea was super annoying throughout because it just kept lowering her damage on every like good damage turn she would have. We are up to 84 crack on Ylmer, but he does dispel on I think the next turn. So we need to do as much as possible this turn before he dispels all that crack and we go back to doing no damage. He also reinforces, so he takes a lot of less physical damage. So having our holy damage on Laia is very, very nice. We get Colossal Blow and Bludgeon here. We also get a Purple Club. Bludgeon on Navalea is going to be nice for applying more crack and having multiple hit attack. Colossal Blow is nice for removing Reinforce on enemies, like sometimes we just want to do that. But yeah, we get a Purple Helmet on Heiner. The reason I really prioritize that is because we're going to need as much block going forward so that we can have Steel Forge proc. Yeah. Just the same thing. That should start us with like 50 block on Heiner though. So very, very solid item choice there. There's a few other block armors to pick up in the early game like that. Most of them increase block substantially if you get a second one, so very nice. Holy Hammer is going to be incredible. This is a very lucky pickup. We're going to be picking this up for Laia, of course, because she actually has extra Sanctify charges, and this will let her put so much more Sanctify on our heroes. Yeah, you can see me looking at this for quite some time. I'm just like, man, this is going to be real good. I really wanted to get the purple one too, so we could apply more fire to enemies, because that would just be extra amazing. Not sure if we're going to have that luck. But here's all my decks at the end of Act 1. You can see we picked up a few cards, mostly punches. We're trying to pick up every Holy Slash we can on Laia. The main is going to be nice, and the Sunder Armor that she got for both those purples kind of turned her more into a support this game, which is fine because that's closer to what her role was anyways with providing heals. Now we spent all our golden shards, and these are the decks that we came up with. Again, feel free to pause if you want to take a closer look. These are not bad. We upped Holy Slash so that we had some Zeal. Now that we can apply fire to ourselves, so we'll be able to have extra damage on Laia anytime we have Zeal and fire, but we don't want to have too much fire on her because we don't want her to take too much damage, at least not until we can apply Sanctify a bit more reliably, which maybe we're already at because we have Holy Hammer. I just wasn't quite sure where we'd be. And again, the Navalea-Laia combo is kind of bad because we want Navalea to be less than 50% health as much as possible, but at the same time, enemies get her there pretty quickly, so we have to be really careful. But yeah, you can see we healed her up to full because I just wasn't sure how much damage enemies would be doing, so I had her attack the enemy with 40 Sanctify. Gave her a lot of healing, which was nice, but lowered her damage significantly because her passive damage increase is really, really strong. Hard to pull off correctly though. Generally you want a high block build and some more self-damage cards and a more reliable way to heal if you need to. But yeah. Slimes have 80% blunt resistance to start with, I believe, so these guys are just really hard to take out. We're going all the way to round 4. There's a lot of long fights. We pick up a Pummel, which is very nice. We already bought one for Bree. War Banner is guaranteed here. Stone Maul is also guaranteed. That's why we wanted to go this path and steal from the Lizardmen. Stone Maul means now that every time Bree hits an enemy, she will be applying 4 crack, regardless of what her hit does. So if we have something like Bludgeon, it'll apply the 5 crack, and it'll do 4 more crack or whatever it does, which means that we'll apply like 8 per hit, and we'll stack up our damage really fast. This also counts for the on-hit of the enchantment. As you can see though, we couldn't make the best use of the enchantment because it does cost 1, so we can only play 1 Pummel after it unless we have our Energize card the turn before, which is kind of rare, though I could do some work to set that up. And I want to take Maim on Heiner here too, just so we have a little bit more of a chance to slow down enemies that are really problematic for us. Ideally just so that like Bree can go again if she got really hurt, or maybe Laia could go if she has a lot of burn on her, and then she can apply Sanctify to the entire team before that guy goes again. Yeah, I don't know. The Maims were kind of haggard. We prioritized the Seahorse there because we don't want the Seahorse slowing down our entire team. He's also going to be doing the most damage. We had a really lucky turn there, I think. He didn't do his 2 strongest moves of like adding a bad card to our deck and also doing a Shock Nova where he slows our entire team by 4. which just makes them slow forever because we have no ways to speed back up. Here we're doing pretty good. Unfortunately, Heiner taunting was great, but he didn't have enough block to actually go through that low health attack that the Harpy just did. Which, yeah, that's like a 60 damage attack because he had like 50 block on him, so pretty good. Not too much interesting going on in the card rewards. Again, we get a first turn, Unforgiving Nature. We get to attack a total of 3 times, which isn't great, but it was enough to take out a mosquito, so like it's not terrible. These crocodilians are mad that we stole, and unfortunately the reinforced armor that they put on themselves first turn makes this fight go on quite a bit longer because they're all like at 80% resistances. This is part of the reason that we took the Colossal Blow. As you can see, that croc went down really fast as soon as he lost the reinforced armor, especially once we started applying a bunch of crack with Bree's attacks. So yeah, that's Colossal Blow coming in a little bit clutch here. I knew it would probably be useful. I wasn't sure just how good it would be. The Scarab's a little bit in the way. I'm not really sure I'm going to be able to kill it because it has 6 Zeal, so its resistances are insanely high. Navalea's enchantment does apply Frost and Crack whenever she hits an enemy, so it does actually let us take out the Scarab, which is pretty clutch because it's a little bit of extra rewards per the fight. I think it's 150 extra gold per hero. Yep, that's correct. The Shield Bash is tempting there. The Purple Sharpen is taunting me because I would love to be able to play that on a Sharp team, but nah, no such luck. So here we actually get level 3. I want to go over my level 3 choices really quick. God, where am I at? 1450? 1444. Yeah, sure. We're gonna go back a little bit here. Man, I went through these a little bit too fast. This 400% speed is quite something. Yeah. So we have a level 3 choice here on Heiner. Heiner's level 3 was actually so much better than I expected. Of course, Defense Mastery is useless. At the start of your turn, reduce the cost of defense cards in your hand by 1 until they are discarded. Doesn't help us since we only have 1 defense card that we could even grab and play, and that's the one that also does an attack, so we can make that 1 cost, but whatever. However, Iron Furnace is whenever you play an attack card, gain +1 to fire damage and 8 block 5 times per turn. So we can stack up our fire damage if we really want to, which I don't really want to because we're going to be doing a lot more damage based off of crack than we would if we switched to a fire build only. But the 8 block is the base block that we get. So he actually is blocking for like 20 after every single attack for 5 attacks, meaning he's going to be able to get himself up to like 100 block in a single turn. And that's fantastic because it solves our Steel Forge problem. We no longer need the helmet. It's really incredible. Now, Navalea doesn't really have anything good. We could take the Magic Duality. It would just never come into play. We are never playing a Mage card. There's just 0 attacks in Mage decks, and we can't play any of the other cards, so as nice as it would be to have better energy, we can't. Scourge +2 on enemies is not too great, but Scourge also reducing all resistances by 5%, so essentially turns Scourge into vulnerability, I figured could see some use, so might as well take it. Of course, we have the same problem with Laia as we do with Navalea. We can't play any cleric cards really, so no point in Warrior Duality. She would really benefit from the energy savings, but yeah, we have to unfortunately take Zealotry, but Zealotry is not too bad. It does give us +2 Zeal, and then Zeal this hero increases all damage done by 1.5% per burn charge instead of just the 1%. Also only loses 2 charges at the end of turn instead of all of them. So that does mean that our basic add 1 Zeal to ourselves through an attack does add 3, and it'll last for 2 turns, so we can kind of make sure that we're keeping our damage rolling with fire. This one for Bree, this one I just didn't know what to do, so I just kind of saved the level up for a while because, like, I don't know. Thorns doesn't seem useful. Gaining Thorns doesn't seem that great. We're not really planning to do a Thorns damage build. Yeah, there's just nothing too fantastic about that. Again, we get Unforgiving Nature, but this time we get Pummel. Pummel with Unforgiving Nature is definitely our best turn. It does allow us to attack or hit 4 times. So each one of those hits will trigger Unforgiving Nature and just do a ton of damage. Navalea's Vengeance is one of her best cards. It gets her down to lower health, meaning that she'll be able to do more damage through that low health. And it also hits a lot of times and does a lot of damage. So it's pretty good. But you can see it is a little bit risky. Navalea gets very low here. Fighting the wizard is really annoying because it means, by wizard I mean, like, I guess he's like, guys, he has like an angel wings? What is that? I don't even know. Anyways, he's annoying because he summons. And so he summoned first turn. He gave them another Rifty, which is just super annoying. So we took out the invulnerable orb ball, only to have it replaced with Rifty, and I was just getting frustrated. We want to take out the, Colin, I don't know, Colin and back, because he just is going to hurt us with Shock Novas and putting bad cards in our deck again. As you can see, we already have a bad card in our deck. Of course, the summoner summons 2 Rifties, so now we have 2 Rifties to deal with. God, I hate this guy. He doesn't actually do too much himself, but his support is amazing for whatever team he's on. Especially if you're killing kind of slowly like we are and can't kill him fast. He's just, ugh, so painful to go through. And I can't even focus him right now because most of our attacks hit the front, because Pommel Strike can only ever hit the front. So we can't apply too much crack on him outside of Bree's turns, and there he goes, slowing us down again by 3. It's just a huge slog of a fight. Although, that said, for a fight where the enemy summoned 3 times, we did get through it around round 4, so this is still going faster than something like the Thorns run or the No Attacks run did. Maybe unsurprisingly, because this is all attacks, but I wasn't expecting the scaling to be quite as good as it was. I wasn't sure how well crack would do, given all the resistances to monsters seem to favor physical resistance for the most part. I think we did get kind of lucky in some of our fights. The Minotaur is a really rough fight for us, and we didn't have to fight too many of him. The crabs are really weak to blunt damage, so it's one of our saving graces. I hate these crabs because they add bad cards to your deck, and then that bad card discards a card, so you can end up like in a game like ours where we only have very limited Inspire, you end up having to draw 5 and 2 of those cards get taken away, so you have a 3 draw and it's just terrible. Getting the Unforgiving Nature there, you can see Bree takes out like 300 health by herself, Laia takes out another 120, and then Navalea can finish them off. Heiner didn't even have to go, but if he had, he probably would have killed them too. We do get a Bouncing Shield. Because Heiner was getting so much block, I figured that Bouncing Shield would actually be really useful. I didn't take Tainted Rug here because I didn't think it was going to be that great compared to our other options, but it might have actually been on Heiner. I maybe should have taken it. Mixed Salad is really good. Eternal Candle is actually how we're going to survive in the very late game. I'll go over that really quick because Laia always puts fire or burn charges on herself with her enchantment every time she plays an attack card. She is going to have a ton of burn. This means in the very late game, Hand Check is going to transform all the burn, which will probably stack up to 200 if we're being honest, into dark. And having 200 dark pop on Laia, well, we're not going to be able to have enough block on her to save her. Like, it's just going to be an insane amount of damage all at once. No way in hell could we survive. Eternal Candle stops all of that because it makes us immune to dark, as well as giving us 1 more Sanctify charge and plus 6% resistances, so very, very clutch candle. I knew it was going to come because we're going the Straw Hat route. It always shows up here, but very nice for us. Still not sure what I want to take on Laia, or on Bree there. Bree, we do get the Purple Bludgeon. Here, I just wanted to show off this fight. This is a clear case of, like, if you target the wrong enemy at the wrong time, you can lose fights. In this case, I did need to target down the back harp enemy. It turns out her support was just so good that if I don't kill her before she goes round 2, I lose this fight. Every single other enemy I kill doesn't matter. I kept thinking I didn't want to kill her because one of these guys does a summon, and I didn't want to have to deal with the summon. These guys also combo in dark, the middle 2 mummies, so I didn't want to have to deal with their combos, plus the front guy is going to be removing my reinforce on Heiner. But yeah. It turns out her support was just way, way too good. And after killing her, which took me longer than I'd like to admit to find out, there's that guy's summon, by the way, the fight actually becomes pretty trivial. And we're able to move on. Heiner staying alive is so huge for us. He takes so much damage with his block. Yeah, that's the basics of the fights going on. I'm trying to think if there's anything I missed so far. I've been speaking kind of fast. You can see the Sanctify is really adding up. Laia does have her overflow healing as well, and I put her next to Navalea, which, again, maybe not the best choice because we want Navalea to be kind of low health, but at the same time we don't because enemies are doing a lot of damage to us and she might die. So I just took the safe route with Navalea and I figured I wasn't going to need her passive damage too much of the time. I took the approach of, if it happened, that'd be great. If not, oh well. Unforgiving Nature here is pretty good. Here's our mixed salad bowl, by the way. I did say I was going to be playing food bowl runs, or I was going to be playing food cards that were added to my hand. Yeah. Feel free to do this run and show me that you could do it without the food cards. I believe in it. I genuinely do. I don't think it's impossible. I just didn't want to have to go through the headache, and anything that could help me fix my draws just felt so nice. Because we're dealing with no Inspire here, no deck fixing whatsoever. We are just subject to the worst of our draws. We have a lot of energy here on Bree. This is a great Bree turn. Bluff gets really good. We are able to take out 2 enemies by herself. She's able to take out 2 enemies by herself, I should say. Just through the sheer power of Unforgiving Nature. Sorry, excuse me. But yeah, things are going well. I'm gonna take a sip of water and come back. There you can see I was debating whether I wanted to kill the lava guy. I was a little bit worried about dying to the Hydra too fast. We do have the upgrade here. I wanted to just upgrade the most expensive cards. Pummels are going to be staying in the deck. So I was finally able to upgrade Bree's Pummel, which is pretty nice. Picking up the poisons was kind of annoying. Upgrading more bludgeons is nice for Navalea, though she does have a purple one now. Or is it Bree who has the purple one? No, I think it's Navalea. I could be wrong on either. Either way, Purple Bludgeon is really good. It does a lot of base damage. Again, that random hero targeting Navalea. I mean, it gets her low, which, like, in a way, that's what we want, right? But still, I definitely lay on pause her. It's going to bring her under the, or over the half cap, which is kind of sad, but it's fine. She's only going to keep the extra damage for 1 turn anyways. And we are able to do a good amount of damage to the Hydra that is taunting. Now, thanks to Heiner getting Steel Forge on turn 1, and yes, that was pretty critical. Yes, we're super lucky. No, I didn't do anything to make sure that happened. That was just luck. Yeah, Steel Forge kind of just carries us through this fight. This is the fight I was struggling with so much with the other team. I just couldn't get to it healthy enough. And turn 2, they would just wipe out Andrin and Sylvie, who are a lot less resistant, even though I had max resistances on them. And yeah, I couldn't make it through, but maybe Heiner drawing Steel Forge first turn could make them survive too. Tough to say. That said, didn't have any ways to get rid of the wet on all our heroes. The only reason Laia doesn't have wet on her is because she has that flame charges keep coming up. Oh God, what's it called? Flame charges a stack on her every time she plays an attack. So yeah. That was helping her out in surviving this fight, but Navalea gets up to 56 poison now, and it's just getting a little bit ridiculous. So the Hydras will eventually win an attrition war. This is still a very tough fight, even with all the advantages that we had. I was getting a little bit unlucky in my mixed salad bowl food, where I couldn't dispel my poison either, but I mean, that's kind of okay. Didn't really want to rely on it for its effects too much, because I did want to focus mainly on this being an attack run. Navalea is adding a lot of crack by herself as well. Heiner's up to 266 block on an attacks only run. Like, he's so good. I mean, attacks plus his enchantments, of course, as in enchantments are insane. I'm targeting down the back Hydra with Bree here, mainly so I could stack as much crack as possible on him. I believe that the front Hydra was going to die. I also just need to target down the back Hydra before he summons more and more heads, so there was a little bit of Sanctify left over, thankfully, like just enough that Navalea could survive that turn. Unfortunately, the same is not true for Heiner. Heiner does go down. Didn't really have an easy way to save him. This fight I tried a few times to make sure I could do it to like the best of my abilities, and every single time I've had someone die somewhere along the line, and I didn't want to spend forever on it, so I just let it go. Navalea dies, but we do survive with 2 of our heroes. We come out with 2 death doors. It's not great, but it's okay. Bluff on Laia is not too bad. It's a eventually 0 cost draw attack, which is pretty nice. We can thin out her deck a little bit, make it a bit cheaper. Carnage would be good on Heiner if I knew for a fact I'd be getting the transform damage into blunt damage, but there was no guarantee of that. Titan Gauntlets is very good. It's just better than Leather Gloves, gives us more HP, gives us more powerful every turn, and also makes us immune to Disarm, which might be relevant because we're only playing attacks. So anything that disarms us really shuts down our entire turns. But yeah, here Cloak of Speed is pretty exciting. Penitence Ring is really exciting. There's a lot of really good stuff here. I'm gonna again go through my decks really slow like this. Feel free to pause. You can see what I had at the end of Act 2 there, and you'll see what I changed them to at the beginning of Act 3. Still waiting on Bree's level up, because I just don't think either of them are going to be particularly useful. And I know what I wanted. We do save some gold and some shards, because I want to have more for the end game, or just in case I come across a good shop. I just didn't have many cards I wanted to upgrade. That is one of the other nice things about the Blunt build. Oh yeah, we're taking Bloodbath here. Sorry, I'll go over that a little bit. We're taking Bloodbath because we're going with the Penitence Ring. Penitence Ring, every time we apply Sanctify, we apply Bleed. So that does mean that we're going to be applying a good chunk of Bleed with our Holy Hammer that's also applying Sanctify on hit. So we can actually get up pretty high to respectable, like 60 Bleed source, maybe 100 in the very late game if Laia gets some good energy. We take Stainless Cuirass on Navalea. That's going to give her some good survivability. Dispel 1 is nice. The speed doesn't matter too much. Cloak of Speed, I decided, doesn't really matter for me either. I was debating whether I wanted to buy more pets here. There is a pet trainer outside that I thought about going towards, but in the end, I just want to go towards the Coliseum. The pet trainer would be nice, but we're going to lose our pets in the handshake fight, and I wanted to make sure we weren't relying on them for our damage or any other stuff we were doing, because if we were going to lose on the Archon fight. I was very worried about the Archon fight and the handshake fight for the entirety of this run. I knew they would both be huge challenges. I was just hoping that Straw Hat would help carry me once I got to them. Yeah, Heiner loses all 128 of his block and then some, as the enemies just thoroughly thrashed him that turn. He was taunting, but man, that's a lot of damage output they had. The Crocodile, again, putting Reinforce on all the enemies, very annoying. Very high resistances, so we're not doing too much. Even when that Crocodile is up to 64 cracked, you can see we're doing 15 damage. Man, plus 64 going down to 15, that hurts. But yeah, not much we can do about that. These other enemies aren't too resistant, at least, to the physical damage, especially the Fire Girl Mage in back, but she does have a summon, which is kind of annoying, because we need to take that out before it does too much more damage to us. We are a bit weak to statuses. We don't really have Dispel outside of Navalea's armor. And we kind of just have to heal up with our Sanctify, so we kind of, in a sense, need more healing than most teams because we can't afford to dispel stuff, or like we just won't be able to. So yeah, Sanctify comes in super clutch. Navalea and Heiner like totally carried this run. I think, sorry, not Navalea and Heiner. Laia and Heiner totally carried this run. Heiner just having that godly level 3 passive where he generates block every time he attacks, like making Steelforge relevant all the time, and Steelforge blocking for like 200 at least for everybody, as well as making sure that they keep their block from turn to turn. So good. Sadly, the shop we got wasn't too good there. As you can see, I'm feeling pretty confident on this run by taking a lot of challenge modifiers. Oftentimes, you can't do that if you're doing a really rough challenge or the team's not really doing too hot, but I was able to do it now. Here I want to take out the squirrel before it slows us down too much. That's why I'm focusing on it. Thankfully, I am able to take out that squirrel. Everything else I'm just going to kind of have to deal with. Like, I know the mosquitoes are going to go. I know they're going to stealth. I don't really have much AoE or random either, so I can't really deal with stealth. The spider I can kind of get low, but I can't kill. It just has too much HP. It's very resistant. Hatch is very annoying because it focuses all our damage on a bad spider. Mosquitoes are terrifying because they give us like just an insane amount of poison and bleed. And Heiner's gonna die next turn. Thankfully, I do have a lot of Sanctify, so he won't actually die. I just have to make sure he attacks a mosquito that has a ton of Sanctify. It's part of the reason I'm keeping the middle mosquito alive. It's because I want Heiner to go and kill him, so I made sure that he would at least be able to do that. Unfortunately, I miscalculated a little bit on how much damage he'd be able to do, and he kills the mosquito in one hit, so he starts the next fight a little bit lower than I'd like, at less than half health, which is a little scary. Just a bit spooky, but those maims are actually coming in clutch. Slowing down the fire Mancer in back there actually saved Heiner's life. It may not look like it. I guess he didn't do his pyro launcher there. But usually he can do an attack that targets the front hero for like 50 fire damage. And if he had been able to do that before Heiner put up all his block, as well as whatever other fire damage he did, I think he did the AoE one, Heiner would just be dead. And this fight would be a whole lot harder. Instead, we are very safe because we got Steel Forge. And Steel Forge is... I'm sure like a lot of players know this, like as they're climbing through madness levels, and once they discover Heiner, they're like, man, Heiner really just... he's a crutch to lean on. he carries so many runs. Like, it feels so good to have any form of tankiness in a challenge mode where I had no block for a while. I'm loving it. Yeah. And also, if anybody ever does this challenge without enchantments, I'd love to see it. I actually don't think it's possible. Like, just legitimately, straight up. I don't think you could do it. So if someone wants to prove me wrong and like has an entire run that they recorded, that'd be amazing. I would love to see it because honestly, I'd probably learn something new. It'd be great. Plus, it'd be fun to watch. Yeah, here you see our God, what is that sword called? I don't know. Our sword that does damage based on the amount of bleed that enemies have. That did pretty well. Did 375 damage. It was, of course, converted to Holy for Laia, so very, very good. Siegebreaker is great. It does apply Vulnerable, however, it wasn't upgraded, and non-upgraded Siegebreaker doesn't target any monster, and I didn't want to spend shards to upgrade it. Pulverize is a card that I just remembered existed once I saw it with Laia, and it scales off of the amount of crack on enemies, which of course we're going to be having a lot more crack on enemies more of the time. So, yeah, that's a great card. It costs 2. It splits its damage, so it gets double bonus off of crack, and it scales off of crack, of course, so it's going to be doing a ton. And with Laia, I can transform that into holy damage, so we'll be doing a lot more of a damage that enemies likely aren't resisting as much. I had to restart this fight several times, as you could see, because I played this just a little bit wrong. Standard Bearer, of course, has also been maybe an unsung hero. I haven't sung its praises anyways, as much as I should have this run. It's just a 1 Inspire card for the entire team, for the most part. I mean, the Thorns is whatever. The heal is also like 2 on everybody, which is whatever. But the Inspire for the entire team is so good. It gives Bree turns like these, or even though she drew a lot of useless cards or cards that she couldn't play, it let her do a lot more damage. I am going to be able to kill the Seahorse before it goes. That is something very good for me. I need to focus on the goat guy there, because he does have the potential to break all of Heiner's block, and he also disarms Heiner, which means that Heiner can't attack, which means that Heiner can't gain more block. I was trying to kill him before he disarmed, so I had to do this fight like quite a bit. But yeah, Heiner is just gonna have to go down here. Disarm is super brutal on Heiner. Yeah, because of course I don't get the block or the heal from the Sanctify, and that's all I got going for me. This is one of those rare cases where it's like, yeah, I wish I could have played defend cards with Heiner. Whereas before I didn't really care. As you can see, also the Dispel Armor on Navalea saved her quite a bit of health, which is maybe good? I don't know, maybe that's bad. I keep going back and forth on whether I needed Navalea to have more health or not. The spider at the end though, not much of a challenge. And we're looking good. Man, I'd love to take those in rages. Shieldbreaker I'm taking because I'm worried about the middle boss of the Fireland a little bit. Laia gets a really good card every time she plays an attack. She's able to do... Can I see it? No, that's even worse. That's even farther ahead. Sorry, I'm just pausing a little bit here. We get Bluff on Bree as well, which is really, really solid. We want to take every bluff we see on every single hero. Here I do have to decide on what level I'm getting on Bree. I go countermeasures, but I forget that she has a second level up because the level up tag disappears. Fun fact, I guess, if you have 2 level ups in a row. Heavenly Justice, for every energy used, deal 6 holy damage, apply 1 fire, 1 sanctify, and 1 vulnerable to all monsters. Purge the wicked into your hand. So if we play a high cost energy card, which the highest we could feasibly play after playing this is probably 3 cost, to be honest. So it's likely to be a main. We do get to apply a lot of vulnerable to the entire enemy team, as well as do a good chunk of damage. Then we get Purge the Wicked, where we get to attack all monsters, Purge 2. So we can purge a lot of very useful effects with this. This is one of Laia's pop-off cards. It's very good. It also deals holy damage and sword damage, but that's not really too relevant because it's going to be transformed to holy most of the time. And X equals your zeal times 7, so we can stack up a bunch of zeal potentially with Divine Strike, but that does cost 6. That is the combo with Purge or Heavenly Justice, Purge the Wicked. It gives her a huge burst of damage, as well as apply Sanctify to the entire team and debuffs them quite heavily. We get the enchantment that lets Navalea live one more turn if she goes down, but also gives her plus 20% resistances, so let her get a lot lower and be safe at the lower health, though that won't really matter too much. Fusion Laser, I figure, will be actually kind of useful. I did think Guardian would be great too, because it could give us one more Fortify charge if we ended up getting it, as well as gives Heiner a lot more resistances, so he could survive a lot better if his block does go down. But Fusion Laser is another way to apply vulnerability. It also does fire damage, which is scaling off of our Fortify that we stack on ourselves. So the vulnerability really sold me on it, and I ended up having more vulnerability than I thought I was going to have because the enchantments for Laia and Heiner are both very good. And also some of the vulnerability cards I just kept for the entire run because of how useful it was to make enemies at like 90% physical resist just go down to like 60% physical resist, so I could do anything to them. Blood Rain is a fun card too, because it does remove our fire on Laia, and at this point, like, I'm keeping Blood Rain in the deck because fire does burn does so much damage to Laia, but I want to get rid of it as soon as she hits level 5, which she will do as soon as we get the Straw Hat. Straw Hat gives you a ton of experience, for those who don't know, letting you level up to level 5 before the twins without having to like do all the challenge modifiers and like first turn every fight, which is something you'd normally have to do if you want to level up before fighting the twins. So, and yeah, her level 5 is so good. It lets her heal off of burn charges instead of take damage off of them. So, she kind of becomes immortal towards the end of the game if you get the right armors and stuff on her. But for now, you can see that the fire damage on Laia is going to kill her, so I need to end this fight very fast. Thankfully, the enemy decided to shackles her, because I think she was the fastest hero at the time. So we have a whole nother turn, and Heiner does block for the entire team, also kind of sparing their lives. Steelforge came in super clutch there once again. It did run out. He did get out damaged through it, and we were able to get rid of Laia's burn charges by playing a Blood Rain in Bree's deck, so she was able to go and survive. Yeah, a little bit scary, but came out ahead. We got another pummel on Bree. Very lucky for us. Pummels are just good no matter what. Removing cards at this stage is very nice because it does cost money to remove cards at every town. Removing a Holy Slash was a little bit hard for me on Laia because it does apply Sanctify by itself, but because we have on-hit Sanctify, I wasn't as worried about it. We are taking the bottom path here because I think the golden shards are... Well, there's something I can guarantee get by slowing down the video at this part. This is not sped up in any form or fashion, so if you found out where it was, great job. I didn't. I thought it was on the very far right. It was on the very far left. I missed the one last swap. Here, I take the improved laser in Heiner's deck. I'm going to count it as his hero card because it's literally the same card as his hero card. It's just a second copy of it, so I don't know, sue me. I thought it'd be fun to play around with. I could have taken it out of the deck. I don't think it had any bearing on this run's win or not. I just thought it was cool. If you disagree, then, you know, feel free to stop watching the video. I understand. Leave a comment and tell me why you hated it. But no, all jokes aside, it's a fun card. It is going to do a lot more fire damage to the enemy team, and every time we play an attack, we do more fire damage. And it also scales off of Fortify, because every stack of Fortify we have adds +1 damage to our fire and blunt. So, it's a good card. I think I said that like 3 times. Yeah. This fight's not too challenging. I was never afraid of this fight. The next fight I was a little bit afraid of because I kind of have to chunk through the enemies a lot. And Bree's on-hit effect only matters if she actually hits the enemy, so she can't apply crack to enemies if she's not dealing damage to them. And these guys have a ton of block. So, yeah. And by a ton of block, I mean like 61, but they also have like 3 mitigate. So you can see I couldn't get through their block first turn with Bree, and that means that they have no additional crack on them. I am just targeting the cannon because the cannon's going to be taking the most pummels. Navalea was able to get up to like 40 crack there because she drew her enchantment first turn, drew a multi-attack starting card, which very, very solid. I wanted to put the vulnerability on the middle chassis because I wanted to take it out as fast as possible and not have to worry about the rest of the team. This is why I took the remove block card, because this guy gets up to 400 block, which I think is his maximum too, because they actually cap out the same way we do with stacks for some reason. I think? No, because they get us up to 10 vulnerable. I'm not sure how that works exactly. But they do only go up to 400 block, which I think is their cap too, because it looks like they could go even higher if that wasn't the case. Here we do get to purge the mitigate, so Laia's card comes in very handy. And here we also have shield breaker, so we could purge the block and make sure that they have no fortify, not that they had fortify anyways. We're killing the back cannon because the back cannon does so much damage it would probably like burst through Heiner's Steel Forge once again. And although I wasn't planning to, it seems like we're just killing everybody. Laia barely survives that turn thanks to the block and resistances. God, that random hero hit every time, man. It's not really random, is it? We also do, of course, draw Blood Rain, so Laia gets to get wet on herself and make sure that she's not going to die to like the 200 burn that she'd otherwise have. It's also going to be very useful versus Ignito. At this point, this guy has a lot of crack on him, so I can kind of chug through his reactive laser, and we're doing pretty good. Throw Bolas is a great card. It does give us shackles, but I didn't want to take it because I think it'd be that great. Stampede versus Command and Conquer. It's hard. I was playing some skills because the Blood Rains are skills, but I didn't want to play Blood Rains in the late game, and I decided to go for the Stampede, which is every time Bree gets hit, which might not be that often because we were blocking so much with Heiner. She does do blunt damage to the entire team and gains vitality. It is a way for her to have a little bit more survivability, so that's very good. Now, I did not talk about the items that we just picked up, so let's talk about them. The wall we picked up for Heiner, it slows him down by 3, which isn't a big deal because he's already going last every turn anyways. The big thing that does give us is +7 more block charges, which Steel Forge gives us +3 more block charges, and it gives us +1 fortify charge, so he'll be stacking up more fortify every time the enemy hits him, or hits him while he's blocking with Steel Forge. Sorry. Which essentially just means we're able to stack up our damage faster on both Navalea and Bree. Of course, for the entire run, I'm hoping that Navalea could get the transform damage into blunt, because she has a few split cost or split damage cards, and I hadn't had a useful weapon on her until now. We did pick up the Glacial Mallet on her, so now every time she hits an enemy, she does apply Frost. Of course, she's not applying Frost to that dragon right there, because the dragon is immune to chill. Sorry, the proper word for it is chill. It is not called Frost, although I hope you forgive me just interchanging them. And yes, XIlESKRd shows up, doesn't really matter. I think it does make the round last one tick longer though. All in, I thought it'd be kind of interesting. It is blunt, it does apply vulnerability, but it does cost 4, which would be all of our energy. Which maybe it would be fine because it discards our hand too. Like, we'd probably want to discard every card in our hand. But we wouldn't even have that much to discard, so yeah. Wasn't sure how good it'd be. It might have been great. I just didn't think it was gonna be. I don't know. I guess that's the real answer. I just didn't know. And I didn't want to take a risk. Here we want to kill the monk. Monks are definitely our bane. They get rid of all fortify, usually by round 2, if they don't do it round 1. And they damage us through block, which isn't too big of a deal, because if we don't have Steel Forge, we're not blocking. At least not blocking much. We do have that one boon in our deck giving us a little bit of block and barrier, as well as a little bit of a heal. I wonder how many times that's been relevant. It's probably saved one of our heroes' lives once, and I just totally missed it. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in this game. I love when they silence Heiner because he's the slowest hero, and it just doesn't matter because we're not doing the all spells run. We're just doing all attacks, and I can laugh. This fight's a little bit challenging because anybody who goes like stealth every other turn just is hard for us to deal with. We just kind of have to let them come out of stealth and attack us. But once we have Steel Forge up, we're not going to take too much. As you can see, we're all up to like 150 block. The XIlESKRd is annoying, but we're able to take it out. It's shown up a few times and not blocked us at all. We do get another Pulverize on Navalea. This is a really good pickup for us. We get Stone Amulet on Heiner, gives him even more block charges by +2, and it gives him +1 more Fortify charge. So now we're really stacking up the Fortify charges every time an enemy hits us with Steel Forge on. Then we can move on to Ignito. We got a lot of money here, so we're going to have a ton of money going into Act 4. The spike is starting with 7 health, which is because it has Vitality. Oh, because I gave it Vitality with the curse. I was like, why did it have 7 health? I didn't even notice when I first played the run, but now I do. Anyways, so we take out the spikes there. It was funny using the anti-block card to kill the spike in one hit, because they only have 2 health. We do have Purge for Ignito, which I didn't play because I wanted to see if he was going to have anything useful. We got Steel Forge again, like turn 1. So very, very lucky Steel Forge turns for us. Like, it came at the exact right times. For all the terrible luck we had with Laia on pause, Steel Forge was clutch. And I wouldn't trade that for the world, honestly. Yeah. So Ignito, not going to be a problem. He's already at 100 crack. He's got 41 chill on him, which is reducing his blunt resistance by, I don't know, like 10% maybe. Probably less than that. So not too bad overall. Siegebreaker, I do take on Laia because at this point I've just resigned myself to her being the support, and playing 5 vulnerable plus doubling up on crack doesn't seem terrible. Overheat, I take on Navalea. It is a way to get more powerful on her every single turn. It also removes chill and wet, which I don't know if that's relevant. Volcanic Axe, again, I'm not taking because I won't increase Heiner's damage actually, since we're relying on crack for the damage. Now we did pick up the key as we went through the forge, so nothing too crazy here. Warrior Code is a pretty good item. So is Amulet of Protection. It's more block charges, but it's not more Fortify charges, so I didn't want to take it. Golden Bell could be really, really good on Laia, except for the fact that I already have Eternal Candle, and I need Eternal Candle. Like I mentioned, for the handshake fight, he turns all our burn charges into dark, and that would just pop Laia immediately, regardless of having like the 100 extra blocks she could get from Heiner. Here's our decks at the end of Act 3. I didn't actually add too many more cards. We're actually keeping it relatively smooth. As you see, we only have 19, and keep in mind we have 2 boon cards, so we actually only have like 17 in most of our heroes decks. Navalea, in fact, only has 16, so doing a good job keeping it thin. It helps that most cards that we could find are pretty useless for us. And we spent all of our golden shards, all 4,000 of each, basically. Upgraded that pummel on Heiner, upgraded a bluff for him as well. Got rid of 1 card in Heiner's deck and Laia's and Bree's, and then we got another card in Laia's deck and 1 more card in Navalea's deck. We upgraded the Pulverize so that it could hit any monster. We picked up a Divine Strike for Laia because I was really hoping she was going to get a lot more energy somehow, some way. We also kept the Pulverize, of course, made sure it's upgraded to the right color, which I think it already was, and we upgraded our final Pummel that we picked up with Bree. Having 3 of them was a really lucky stroke for us. Pummel is definitely our best DPS card on Bree, at least for this type of Bree run. And it also applies the most crack. So it, in a way, also gives us a lot of damage with her. Oh yeah, there's the Void Crush. I did pick that up on Navalea. That is one of the cards I bought because I wanted to try out something that added 9 crack, 8 chill, which could be relevant slow, and essentially 5 vulnerability that isn't vulnerability, so we could stack them up pretty high. Thought maybe it'd be good, and maybe we could have the energy. We're getting into late game, so it was likely. It doesn't show what I bought here, but I re-rolled the shop. As you can see, I can't re-roll here. I had to leave and then come back, and all of a sudden, Destroyer Gauntlets are in the shop. And I was like, I was so worried that like me closing out the game was going to change what the reroll was, and it did. I was totally right. There's a bug with that something, or somehow, some way. Anyways, Destroyer Gauntlets are there, and I really wanted them, but I bought something pretty good instead. Monoloop. Monoloop on Bree. Now we won't have any energy issues in her deck. I thought about it for Laia, I thought about it for Navalea, but both of them had decent rings. Yeah, both of them just had decent rings. Bree didn't. She also had the better deck for it because she has a lot of 0-cost punches, the most out of any of our heroes. So she could make the most use out of Monoloop, and essentially I was sure she would never run out of energy. Unless she had the worst first turn of her life. We don't take sad here because Melancholy is scary to me. Adding 2 sads every turn to our deck when we can't have extra draw is very sad. And the Straw Hat is not available yet. Once it is available, maybe Melancholy wouldn't be too bad. But for now, I'm not risking it. The Monk there is our priority target once again. They take out our Fortify, they can attack us through block. I didn't want to deal with that. We don't get Steel Forged first turn, but at this point we're not as reliant on it. Our decks are turning out to be pretty good. As you see, Bree has the infinite mana. She's doing just a ton of damage every turn. Finally being able to play every card in her hand feels so good after a run where we're playing like 2 or 3 cards out of 5. And now we draw like 7 and she's playing all of them. Oh, it's nice. So nice. But yeah, Navalea is doing some good damage here despite not being at low health. If I could have found a way to keep her at low health, like without having to worry about her dying all the time, that would have been nice. Sadly, Sanctify being our only way of healing just makes that a non-possibility. I still think it was worth having her in here rather than some other hero, because she's going to be doing the most for reducing enemy resistances with Chill, as well as just having a good starting deck with blunt damage. And her starting card just does a lot too. And here, Bouncing Shield pretty much takes out the enemies. Sadly, could have taken them out 1 round earlier if it did a little bit more damage, but can't complain too hard. Divine Strike, not useful on Bree. Second Wind purple is very nice, but can't take it, of course. This fight I'm not too worried about, though maybe I should have been. I don't know. I figure as long as I get Steel Forge, we're going to be okay with Heiner. This guy does damage through block, but we're not blocking too much. He also does damage based on Thorns, but we don't have too much of that going on either. We did get Bree's starting card first turn, which means that Navalea's Inspire, giving her +2 or draw for 1 Inspire. It did actually come up. I mean, that came up quite a few times where Navalea just had a few extra cards, which I don't know if that mattered all that much, but it was nice. And here, Bree gets to play her entire hand, which includes 2 pummels and a bludgeon, a purple bludgeon, as well as some punches and stuff, and the Unforgiving Nature, so she's able to take out a lot of these enemies despite them having Reinforce and being very tanky against the blunt damage, so pretty good. We get the Purge, we get the Sanctify, Laia heals up to full, she was the only one who's damaged, so we're in good shape. Bree, I don't want to fill up her deck too much with bad stuff. Bouncing Shield isn't really useful on anybody other than Heiner. Heiner does pick up a Pulverize though, which is always going to be useful because that's going to be just a ton of damage for us. Can't believe I couldn't take that Transform damage card. Very, very annoying to me. The remove Reinforce there, I didn't use on the target that would probably have been best, but and that would be the second guy going. But I had other priorities this fight. We want to kill the Angel. We want to kill the Dragon and back. Mainly because he does a stun on round 2 typically, and that is scary. Here's our Unforgiving Nature turn. Finally, they're good on Bree. We get the Bluffs, which take out the front enemy. We have 1 Bludgeon and 3 Pummels that we're able to play all of, stacking almost up to 100 crack on the second guy there. We kill the Angel, we kill the guy in front. No problems. The reason the guy in front, or now, is not taking any damage is because he has Reinforce on, but as soon as he loses that Reinforce, he's going to be hurting. Heiner's now able to attack, so he can heal himself up with Sanctify, and we didn't get stunned somehow? I don't know what happened. I feel like the dragon's supposed to do that, but it just forgot, and I'm grateful. Now that we have block, we can kind of safely attack into the frost damage that it does on retaliation. Heiner's not going to be able to go before it. Now it decides to stun Navalea. I figure Heiner might be able to kill it, but he doesn't actually get the energy for it. We have a lot of bleed, but not enough to do significant damage, but we get 3 pummels on Bree, and we're able to play them all. Again, not actually able to kill it because it is immune to crack. What a jerk, I know, right? The fight right before the Straw Hat fight, but this is it. We finally did it. We got to the Straw Hat. And as you can see, we're winning our fights fairly comfortably. We're not winning them fast, but we're not winning them too slow. and we're at full health most of the time when we finish. Now, we also find the Iron Fortress here. Of course, I take the Straw Hat on Bree. It does suck losing the boss item that gives us powerful every turn, but Straw Hat gives powerful to everybody every turn, so it's just better, of course. And it gives us the 2 Inspire, but Bree going first also means that that 2 Inspire is going to happen for everybody else. And if we gave Straw Hat to someone like Heiner, who was going last, not that we ever would, of course, none of the other heroes on the first turn would get that benefit from the Inspire. We also find Iron Fortress, which is the tankiest armor that you can get in the game. I mean, Purple Iron Fortress is like even better by like a huge margin too. I think it's like 50 health and 40% resistance increase, as well as like -1 speed. And then every time you're damaged, you gain 2 mitigate. So Laia is now a god tank, at least against the handshake fight. I don't think she could die. So with Iron Fortress, I'm no longer worried. I did believe that I'd be able to beat Handshake, even if everybody else died but Laia, which I was hoping wouldn't be the case, but I wasn't sure, honestly, because I didn't know how fast we'd be able to take out the clones. Looking at a lot of these fights, we weren't able to take out a bunch of the enemies quickly, and the clones have like 1,300 health each. We get more energy per turn on Heiner. Very, very solid. He needs that extra energy. All of them do, honestly. Navalea's last level 5 trait isn't going to be too useful. It increases her passive damage, where she does more damage at lower health, but we're not going to be at low health a lot of the time, so yeah. Bit of a bust on that. Righteous Flame, as I said, it does increase our burn charges by 1, so very nice. And then Burn heals this hero by 0.3 HP per charge instead of suffering damage. Also, Zeal on this hero increases all damage by 7%. It's one of the reasons I wanted Divine Strike. It gives us potentially 6 or 8 Zeal, depending on which version that we have. And that could increase our damage by, oh god, I don't want to do math this on YouTube, that'd be bad. God, 8 times 7, that's 48, right? No? Yeah, sure. No, that's not, that's 56. Yeah, it's 56. Okay, my bad. But anyways, 56% extra damage on a turn could be very nice for Laia. She, again, just needs energy, but I do think I did the right thing in prioritizing the energy on Bree. Also, Laia didn't have enough zero-cost cards for her to really be able to play a very expensive card like Divine Strike easily, so it wouldn't have really worked for her anyways. I think the next best choice was Navalea. Yeah, and then Bree gets more energy, which is kind of pointless because we have Monoloop on her, so that's the other reason it would have been better on Navalea. But Bree being able to play every card is so good. Main at this point is one of Laia's main strengths. It does mean that we're going to be able to go before the big boy on the second turn. And Heiner also having main means that we're going to be able to go before the Lancer on the second turn with both Laia and Bree. And then Navalea gets to go before both of them as well. So, yeah. Pretty good overall. Again, prioritize that monk. We kill them with Bree through their healing. They do get their heal restoration, but Bree just goes through it anyways. She doesn't care. Unforgiving Nature with Pummel is so good. The rest of these cards aren't too great. I'd love to take a Citadel, but obviously it would be unnecessary. I wouldn't actually love to take a Citadel in our current decks. It has no purpose, but I always like the Citadel, the card. It's a fun one. We do get our Stampede first turn on Bree. This is also one of the only turns that she wasn't able to play every single card in her hand because we got a pretty expensive hand. Next turn, though, she'll be drawing more, and she's guaranteed to have a lot of punches in hand. Main, not too useful this fight. I was debating on whether I wanted to do more vulnerable or more crack, and we give the double vulnerable, or if we get the double crack and we get vulnerable, so Laia's doing her job as a support. I wanted to get more Sanctify on enemies as well, so playing more attacks might have been good. That was the other thing I was debating. We have 6 energy. I made sure that we would this turn. Sadly, we don't get Divine Strike. I tried to draw it, didn't get it. We do get Purge the Wicked, which I do want to play, even though it's activating the Reactive Laser a lot. It does get rid of the Mitigate and the Fortify on these enemies. And it means that Bree is going to be able to do a world of damage to this guy and back. Sadly, we can't attack into this guy too much, otherwise Navalea would just die, and I don't want another Death Door to remove. Even though we have the money at this point to remove it, thanks to going the Straw Hat path, we get an extra 2,000 gold. Yeah, at this point we draw Steel Forge on Heiner, so now I'm really not like worried about taking damage. And we're gonna be okay. We do have to worry about healing this guy too much with all our cards. Laia is doing good damage at this point though, so is Navalea, so is Heiner. And of course Bree is doing probably the most damage of any character. But these guys are tanky. We have max 6 vulnerability on them, and they're still resisting our hits quite a bit. They have 30% resistances, and the heal of 2% per card we play is stacking up. Heiner impressed me this turn by doing like 1,000 damage. So, very happy with his deck so far. And we do kill them with the bleed. We get a purple Citadel option on Heiner. Obviously we're not taking it. Siegebreaker on Bree. She can actually play it, and I was worried I'd need the vulnerable, so I do decide to take it here. Devastate on Laia. We transform damage into Holy, so I figured I'd take it. Maybe the Fury Charges would be cool. Not really sure. Destiny does end up appealing to me quite a bit because it reduces the highest cost card in your hand by 4. And it doesn't matter what kind of card it is, though we are playing attacks. You'd assume it to be attacks, but it doesn't have to be. In any case, Heiner could use the extra energy, so I'm pretty sure with Destiny he won't have any energy problems anymore. Laia could also use the extra energy, so I kind of want to give Destiny to her, but she already has a really good weapon in the Holy Hammer. Applying that ton of Sanctify is pretty useful. Justicar Ring seems good for Laia, like applying the extra bleed is making our bleed synergy work pretty well, but I'd love to get an energy ring, and so that's kind of why I was debating whether I'd get Destiny on her or not, whether we could do the Divine Strike play and make Laia just a lot more useful than she currently is. Her damage is really falling off. We're really only using her as a sort of like slight heal. Oh, I mean, it's actually a pretty good heal once we get a bunch of Sanctify on. But her early turns don't give us that much heal unless we get the punches, because we don't play enough attacks. And even then, it's like, what, 16 Sanctify? Ooh, boy. It's really our other turns that are giving us a lot more, it's Steel Forge and stuff like that that's giving us a lot more survivability. Her other turns, also when she gets her enchantments, are giving her a lot more Sanctify. So, that was something I was keeping in mind, was the fact that I could get rid of the ring if we get a shop in one of these upcoming fights that gives us energy. But since it's not a guarantee, I don't want to bank on it. And yeah, we're in the 4th quarter here. We're doing pretty good. Not too much more to say about this run. It's going very well. I'm a little bit nervous about Bree's health at the moment, but as soon as she can attack, she's going to be healing up to full. And that's going to be that for this enemy. This guy is very tanky to our damage, but our vulnerability makes him just not tanky enough that we can actually do decent damage to him. I pick up Divine Strike on Heiner because I actually think that we're going to be stacking a lot of blood on enemies, and it seems like... Sorry, a lot of bleed on enemies. And it seems like we have no real reason not to bank on that. Heiner, of course, having Destiny, I mean, is going to be reducing the cost of Divine Strike by 4 anytime he draws it, so it only costs 2. And outside of that, he has 4 energy a turn. Also, outside of that, he... no, that's actually really it. Never mind. I went too far. But yeah, we're just removing any card that I don't think is that good. I want to keep the 0-cost cards in Navalea's deck, or sorry, Laia's deck, because she just has such an expensive deck, and there's no way I'm playing all these cards all the time. But I also want to keep all the cards that she had because I'm using her as like a utility support. So yeah, Laia's deck ended up being the roughest for me. She can pop off really hard, but this was not the run for her. I mean, she carried this run on her back by being the best person to apply Sanctify with attacks. But other than that, this wasn't the run for her to shine damage-wise. Although, if you want, take a guess at who does the most damage. The answer may surprise you. I'd be curious if anybody could guess, like, who does the most damage from greatest to least, like in what order. I obviously know because I've played this entire run and looked at the stats, but I'm sure you could kind of guess who number 1 is. But number 2 and 3 might be a little bit surprising. And number 4 might also be a little bit surprising. Laia's been doing pretty good damage throughout the run, at least, with her holy damage. Of course, the massive damage that you do in the late game does tend to outshine a lot of the damage that was done in the early game, since it's just so much less of a number. As you can see, Heiner's doing like nothing here, so that was pretty rough. We also didn't get Steel Forged. Now, we do get a good Unforgiving Nature turn. Bree just has a ton of cards. Unfortunately, cycles through her deck a little bit too fast. I get rid of the guy in the middle because he adds bad cards to our deck, and I don't like those bad cards. The blobs aren't too much of a concern for me, although the stacking bleed does scare me a little bit. We get pretty low. So, honestly, I think I was taking this fight a little bit too lightly, but we have Heavenly Justice. We're going to be able to apply a good amount of vulnerability to these front thick guys, so they won't be able to resist us for too much longer. And every hero who attacks after this point is going to be able to heal. And thanks to Navalea applying chill on hit, she's able to chill these guys so much that they're going to be going after Navalea and Bree does. So Bree's the last person I really need to go, so I'm just going to let her play instead of attacking with Laia and killing the enemy there. And Bree gets to heal up to full because it's the last fight before hand check. Now, we did find a shop for this challenge, and I was hoping to get something great on this shop. We pick up Blood Feeding there because we're going to be applying a lot of bleed. And we finally get Destroyer Gauntlets. Also, we found like 2 or 3 Heart of Thorns, and it really pisses me off because that would have been so useful on my other runs where I was doing a lot of Thorns, but I never find Heart of Thorns on those runs. Anyways, not the point. Destroyer Gauntlets. We could transform our damage to blunt. I wanted that on Navalea for so long that I kind of just like, I don't know, blind. I wanted the Sapphire Ring as well on Laia, so I do that, and I'm like, yeah, that's a good choice, right? Get rid of all my bleed and only have Sapphire Ring so that any of my cards that synergize with bleed are useless now. And then takes Destroyer Gauntlets on Navalea, because who really needs the chill that's helping reduce enemy resistances, and also the one way we have of slowing enemies down past using actual slow. So I get rid of the cards that synergize with bleed as much as I can with both Laia and Heiner, though Heiner still has 1 in Divine Strike. And yeah, the Ring of Energize is not that great. Also, speaking of not that great, not a great turn for Bree. She draws all her expensive cards, not any of her punches on turn 1, so we're not able to do too much to hand check, and also we used our Unforgiving Nature that turn. Probably a bad idea. Probably shouldn't have done that, but we did. Thankfully, this turn we do get Laia's really good starting card, which is the Purge 2. So we're able to purge the fast stuff of all the clones before slowing them down. And this is where having extra chill on hit would have been very, very useful. We could have chilled and frozen some more of these clones so that they weren't going so much faster. But I'm dumb, and I didn't do that. Yeah. Anyways, this fight is hard. Your clones heal up basically everything that we did to hand check and heal off most of the damage that we did to them as well. So Bree does have infinite energy at least. She's able to get up to 100 crack on the front clone. Bree had the most health there, so she took the disintegrate damage like a champ. Heiner's Steel Forge is really protecting our entire team. Made sure that we didn't die to that massive burst attack. God, hand check does so much damage. Now, the double blunt damage is very nice on that Dark Blow, I will admit. Super cool. But boy, it would have been useful to have a lot more chill on enemies right now. And Laia is still struggling with energy despite the fact that I gave her energy cards. Because imagine that. I actually needed her to do all the support that she's been doing throughout the entire run. And not just go on a, like, try to carry by herself. I know I mentioned at the beginning that every hero kind of needs to carry for themselves, and that wasn't exactly true. It was a bit of a lie, I guess. Really just, I thought that was going to be the case, but it ended up not having to be. I leave the clone in back there alive because I figure that Bree will be able to kill it. And it had a lot of Sanctify charges on it, so I wanted to deal with it that way. We are able to kill it with like a Siege Breaker. I want to stack up as much crack on as possible on hand check early on so we can do damage as fast as possible. I know on hand check there is a timer to where he's just going to start killing our entire team. I figure that'll be about round 6. Here you can see hand check would have turned that 92 dark on Laia, or sorry, 92 fire on Laia into dark. That would have, if not killed her, almost killed her for certain. But thanks to her being immune, we're in pretty good shape. Bree's able to do good damage now. We no longer have energy concerns because we've cycled through the entire deck. Hand check's at max vulnerable, max crack, so we get him down to about half. Bree's doing some really solid damage even without Unforgiving Nature, though I really should have saved it for a turn like that. We probably could have ended this fight a lot faster, but I didn't because I'm silly. Laia's also not doing too much damage because she needs to apply more Sanctify, so hand check is weaker to the holy damage. But as you can see, at this point, I'm feeling really confident. I'm sure that we're going to get through the fight. Divine Strike is useless on Heiner because we're not applying any bleed, because duh. Anyways, I felt so dumb about that whole decision. Yeah, this is where I figured we were going to start dying. Thankfully, Laia is able to heal Navalea and Bree, so Navalea is not going to die, though we don't need Navalea to go. We actually have more than enough damage this turn. I knew round 6 was going to be about our timer on hand check, but we were able to kill him before that. Which is exactly what I needed. Here is the fight I was afraid of, though. More so than hand check, because I prepared pretty well for him. The Archon, I know we're going to need to go into the later rounds, which means we're going to have to play around his Doom mechanic and actually play those cards. And this is why Straw Hat is so critical, because it gives us those extra draws that we really, really need in order to deal with having the dead draws of Martyrdom. That don't do anything other than give us more Doom, which in a sense gives us more time to survive in the fight. So, yeah. Very, very tricky fight for me there. Divine Strike, God, you're so bad. At least you're on Sanctify for Heiner, so I guess you were useful. Wait, yeah, why was I thinking Divine Strike didn't do that? Oh, because it adds bleed per Sanctify. Anyways. Not the point. Divine Strike was actually not too bad, but it just, wasn't applying as much Sanctify as I felt like I should have been in this fight, I guess. Oh, that's because the Archon, of course, just makes all the Sanctify into Dark. My bad. Anyways, that all aside, this fight's going pretty well. This is, unfortunately, a rough fight for us in the sense that we don't do great damage to him on this turn, because he gives himself, like, plus 40% blunt resistance. At least with all our heroes except for Laia. Laia does actually do decent damage to him, and this is also a turn where anytime you hit him, he applies Dark to you. Now, of course, Laia is immune to Dark, so she doesn't have to play around that at all. She can just play as many cards as she can, which unfortunately is not that many, because she gets 4 energy on round 2. 3 energy on the rest of the round, so it gets even worse from there. Everybody else you can see is taking those Dark Explosions like a champ. Heiner doesn't really care because he's attacking and adding block to himself. That's going to do more than the Dark Explosion ever will. Bree is someone I'm a little bit scared of doing too much, but with all the Sanctify we have, we're going to be ending at full health, and I'm pretty sure he's not going to be able to kill Bree at 236 health with max resistances that we have on her. Straw Hat also giving her a decent amount of resistances, like plus 16% isn't terrible. But yeah. So what I meant by this is, or what I meant by what I was saying earlier, we don't do a lot of good damage on this turn with all our blunt, of course, because he's resisting it more highly, and we just can't get him down to like negatives or 0. Excuse me. What we can do is no damage to him on this turn as well, because this is the turn that every time you hit him, he evades. So it's extremely annoying fight for us to deal with, really. Yeah, I don't know how else to put it. Like, blunt damage is kind of just bad against the Archon. There's a few attacks like that. I think Dark is one of them. Like, basically anything he resists on round 2 is pretty bad. Mainly because his round 1 resistances don't matter as much, I think, because he's just applying barrier to himself and not Dark, and on a lot of teams you can't attack into the Dark that easily. This team, thankfully, we can, because we're going Sanctify, and this is really our round to do as much damage as possible. Thankfully, Bree does deliver on this turn. She gets all her pummels, she gets the bludgeon, she gets the other strike. We deal like 4,000 damage, which is as much as we've done in like the other 4 turns combined. And Navalea follows that up with another 1,000 damage. Heiner follows that up with another, like, I want to say 1,000 damage. He actually does real solid work. And yeah, Archon's down to 4,000. At this point, Navalea is getting really low, which is maybe a good thing. Keep in mind, we want her to stay low. All that Sanctify that he had on him, he does lose. And if we can take that all up with Bree, Navalea won't have as much of it, so maybe she could get low enough health with Dark Explosions that she can deal even better damage. I don't know. That was kind of my hope, but we drew Sads because he shuffles Sads into your deck. I'm hoping that I won't need too much more Doom, but I do know that I need to make it into the rounds 7 and 8 because we're just not killing him fast enough. And we also get weakened every turn, and we can't get rid of our weaken. We're just not going to dispel, like, outside of Navalea's armor. So yeah, this fight comes down to the wire, honestly. We're really close to dying. I know if in one more round the vanish damage is gonna pop some heroes, and we really need to take them out at the 2,000 health. These Sads are sticking in our deck because we just don't have the energy to play most of them, and I need to save the energy for our expensive cards. But we do have a good amount of attacks at least, and yeah, it's close. We're in round 8. This is the last chance Navalea really has to, or Laia has to go. Bree, we're really just counting on drawing pummels, and she delivers again, drawing all the pummels and taking out the last 2,000 of his health. So that was it. That was our attacks only-ish run. We had 4 hero deaths, even better than the 12 deaths we had for our spells run. I really enjoyed this. Using the hero cards, I hope you forgive that conceit. This run was really, really challenging. The way I was initially going about it was even more challenging. I'm happy I switched to the blunt damage. I think it was just a lot safer overall. Heiner's just such a good tank. Steel Forge is amazing. Carried us through that run pretty hard. As well as Laia, of course, carrying us. That Holy Hammer that we picked up early was very nice for our early game heals and gave us so much more Sanctified than we would otherwise have. Bree, of course, did the most damage here, and look at that. Heiner almost did the same amount of damage as Navalea. He was short by 11 damage, which is pretty darn close. Laia wasn't too far behind. So the 3 of them combined did do about 150% of the damage that Bree did, so not too bad when you're thinking about a full carry team. But that's going to be it for now. I hope you enjoyed that one. Sorry, this one was longer than my other runs. It did take me a bit longer to do as well. I'm like recording this the night before at like 1 a.m. This video needs to release at 6 a.m. so I'm going to start uploading this immediately. Thank you very much if you stuck around to this point. I hope you enjoyed the video and have a great day or night wherever you are. Yeah, please leave a like if you enjoyed it as well, and subscribe if you want to see more in the future. Thank you very much, and goodbye.